Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to have you in on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. We are loaded up, man. Plenty of room for you and some great insight on Boomer Sooners' move to the SEC. Longtime Coaches Show host with the Bob Stoops Show and the Lincoln Riley Show. Sportscaster of the Year with News 9 down in Oklahoma City. Former Sooner. Dare I say the author of Sooner Magic, Dean Blevins, going to be with us. We'll talk with Dean here in about 25 minutes, get the lowdown here on just how this this happened with Oklahoma and Texas off to the SEC. They made their formal, hey, SEC, can we join your league, man? We'll bring the Funyuns and the Doritos and some Cheetos, baby. So, we'll get the OU lowdown from Dean Blevins in hour 2. It's a Tuesday with Kaz. Rick Kaczenski. We'll get Kaz's take. He's close to the SEC with where he's at. He's close to the ACC with his connections in Clemson and South Carolina. And, of course, he's a former Notre Dame standout. So that all mixes well with a little bit more realignment talk. We'll dive into some thoughts on Adrian Martinez. You know, what can this fourth year look like for Adrian? Some NFL news and notes to get into. And as said, plenty of room for you. Can dial up 466-3776, 466-3776, 1-800-825-5865. Those are the numbers. Can find and follow us. Do so on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel, and can email chris@hailvarsity.com. Check the podcast out, Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. The Straight Up Breakdown with Greg Smith. We had a fun time recording that yesterday, so that's with your Hurrdat Media platform, Hail Varsity, Brandon Vogel's podcast, Aaron Sorensen, the whole crew is all over it. Love talking sports, and Hurrdat will be that center spot for you. Give us a review, good, bad, or ugly. There's the pitch. How you doing today, Elijah? It's Tuesday. You're wearing sleeves, but I would have forgiven you if you came in without any sleeves due to the heat index.
Well, I changed shirts just before I came in here because...
You doing yard work, dude?
No, that roommate that I told you moved in last week,
Did you help
moved
him?
Out today.
Oh, so you helped him move out.
Yeah, he got himself a gig down in Dallas with the Dallas Wings of the WNBA, so he is packing up the U-Haul this afternoon, and he is headed out to Dallas tomorrow, so that's nice as I get a little more space in my house again. But then it was also disappointing because this morning before I helped him move, I took the spare change I've been saving up for the past 4 years, for 4 years of college.
So you hauled that spare change in?
Hauled that spare change in.
How much?
And, I'm getting there because it was very disappointing.
More or less than the SEC makes in a college football season?
Much, much less. Well, the problem was I keep this change jar. It's a Ziploc bag. I keep it in my car.
It's a swear jar. Just, yes.
Well, and the problems become that whenever I go downtown and park, I just pull out the quarters and use them in the parking meters because, you know. Mm-hmm. But the problem was I had like 400 pennies in that bag and like 50 quarters. So it came out to $41.60-something.
All right. So
$10 a year.
Dinner's on you. Cool.
Yes, I'm paying off that steak and a beer.
Steak and a beer from Elijah. He had to go kill his piggy bank to get the change out. So what is next here is kind of the question as you think about it. And we'll talk to Dean Blevins about this. And I'm just wondering if the SEC stops at Oklahoma and Texas. Do they just stop at Oklahoma and Texas, or do they go bigger and better? Does the ACC react? And who dies? Big 12, AAC, Pac-12? I mean, those are some questions I have. think the Big Ten's fine. I don't believe that. I don't believe the SEC will be able to pull off getting a Clemson and a Notre Dame to come to the SEC. I don't believe that the SEC would go get Michigan and Ohio State. I don't think it's for lack of effort, or I don't think that email or phone call or let's grab a drink, it's probably happened. But I think right now the Big Ten's on solid enough footing because of revenue and TV viewership that they're good. Right now the Big Ten is taking phone calls. Okay? They're taking phone calls, and they can't stand pat. I know they don't have to make a move just for the sake of making move. You want to go quality with the quantity. It can't be quantity over quality. You can't go that route if you're the Big Ten. Just add names to add names. No, but we talked about it a little bit yesterday with some strategic names out there, and what I can see happening is, listen, when it comes to viewership and TVs and people watching the Big 12, okay, people watching the Big 12 watched Oklahoma and they watched Texas. 87% of the Tier 1 rights were spent on either Oklahoma or Texas or both. So that's 13% leftover of Tier 1 rights spent by ESPN and Fox on the rest of the Big 12. So it makes total sense for OU and Texas to say, look, we've carried your butt long enough, Big 12. We've reaped rewards because it's been a 10-team league. We've been able to get into the playoff. Oklahoma has anyway. And we've been able to make a boatload of money. But when push came to shove about, let's talk about TV deals, Oklahoma and Texas and the Big 12 as a whole were not going to be able to command much more money than they're making now. Period. End of discussion. That is what really forced Oklahoma and Texas to go into a new league, into a brutally tougher league. And the reality is you've had good teams in there. I mean, TCU's had 7 top 10 finishes under Gary Patterson. Oklahoma State's finished in the top 25 9 times under the mullet. Oklahoma State's had a good football program. Iowa State is poised for great things with Coach Campbell. They were a top 10 team last year. Baylor won the basketball championship and for a time were really good at football under Briles. But just as a league as a whole, their TV value sucks. And it sucks even worse now without Oklahoma and Texas. The TV value was Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, at the end of the day, Texas and Oklahoma are almost 90% of the TV revenue, and they're getting, 20% together? They're each getting 10% of that, and they're making 90%?
Yeah.
I get it. I get the frustration.
You get the frustration, and you can still go make your 20%, but your 20% is going to be a sick number with the SEC. Because the SEC, 2018-2019, they earned $925 million in TV revenue. Think about that. They almost equaled what the NCAA made. Meanwhile, you're having to kick back to the NCAA if you're the SEC.
Well, and plus the fact that the SEC is going to have a new TV deal coming down the pipes here in 4 years.
And you're going to get $500 million a year from ESPN.
Yep.
Right? And meanwhile, you're positioned well with the Big Ten, your network's money. You're good with Fox.
Yeah, and Fox currently has half the TV rights of the Big Ten, and the rumor on the street is they want to go expand and get the full TV rights of the Big Ten. They've loved that big noon kickoff slot.
It works, and then they're partnered with, they own the Big Ten Network. Mm-hmm. So that's in a lot of households, and it's not a cable thing anymore. It's just viewership for advertising. So if you're the Big Ten, you can't stand pat, but you've got to make the right call. Got to make the right call with who you do add. And that to me is, I think you go try and see a blue blood for a blue blood, okay? And that means if the SEC added Texas and Oklahoma, not just recency from OU, but historically from Oklahoma. Texas thinks they're a lot better than they've been. They've been good from time to time, but they've been just okay. As much talent as they've had down there, they need to be cranking out more than 9 wins. They should be Vince Young good more times than not, and they haven't been. So if you're the Big Ten, you got to counter a blue blood with a blue blood. What blue bloods are out there right now? Notre Dame and USC. USC is all concerned. I should say Notre Dame cares about 3 things. What's our viability with the college football playoff? Being in the ACC allows us to have a good schedule, and they've made the playoff twice. Okay, twice in the last 5 years. And they played for the national championship back in 2012. So Notre Dame's been fine. Their Olympic sports need a home. They had that with the ACC because the rest of their sports can play in the ACC. And then what's going to do okay with NBC? And while NBC isn't CBS money right now to the SEC, or it's not what ESPN's going to pay for their continual tier 1 rights for SEC money, it's still your own network, right? It's still one of the big 3 over-the-air networks, non-cable. You're Notre Dame, and you still have NBC. My thought is this. I am so glad that Barry Alvarez is the special assistant to the commissioner. Now, you can freak out and be pissed about the I-course call. Totally get it. But when it comes to knowing college football and being able to talk to people and having relationships, Barry Alvarez is rock solid, okay? And if we're talking league, Barry Alvarez can have a conversation, and you can have a trusted conversation. I'll ask you this. You trust Barry Alvarez more than Kevin Warren when it comes to making a decision for football, big picture football?
Do you actually want me to answer this?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, hell yeah, I trust Barry Alvarez more than I trust Kevin Warren.
And so do the rest of the athletic directors and college football coaches in the Big Ten. What you're going to have is this. You're going to have teams trying to find homes. It's musical chairs. It means Kansas is probably making a phone call. That means if you're the Pac-12, you have a better shot, I think, of finding your way to the Big Ten than are you going to be able to command TV money? You haven't been now. Pac-12 network's been garbage. Pac-12's not earned anything close to what the Big Ten or the SEC has earned. If you're the Pac-12, it's easier for you to take your dudes and move into the Big Ten West Wing, and then let another conference, as the Big 12 goes away, merge with what's left over with the Big 12 and the leftover Pac-12 move together. Or if you're the AAC, we go back to TV dollars, right? The number you make and get from TV with the AAC is $7 million. Really good programs down there. And the Big 12 was too good for you, right? When it came to trying to add Cincinnati or Central Florida 3 years back. I think the AAC makes more sense to try and kind of strike a new deal and go pick who they want from the Big 12. That means Baylor. That means TCU. That means Oklahoma State. Probably Iowa State. I don't know. Iowa State and Kansas academically could fit into the Big Ten. And football still makes okay money for KU and Iowa State, but it's not crazy money. I still say find a way to add the Pac-12.
See, my problem with Iowa State and Kansas as time goes on is, Kansas against Minnesota does not have any more intrigue to me than Kansas against Oklahoma State.
But here's the thing. What if Kansas gets worth a damn? 6 and 6, 7 and 5.
But you can't be asking what if questions
but this is all a what if.
I mean, it's still, you look at the Kansas football program as a whole over the past 25 years, and even those Charlie Weiss teams that were good,
they weren't good. I mean, they were good when they had Fat Mangino down there.
That's what I meant, Mangino.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
both the sweat fans fit both guys.
Yeah, is it still doesn't have that draws? And when I look at teams, say like a USC against Utah, is not the same draw that USC against Minnesota or USC against Iowa.
Oh, completely.
If you go at a team like that, you're going to be getting more eyes in the Big Ten than they're getting in the Pac-12, and that's why I think it makes sense for both sides, whereas I don't think it makes sense for the Big Ten as much when you look at Iowa State and Kansas.
I'm in agreement with you. I'd love to be able to still play some of the old Big 8, Big 12 regional schools for some non-conference, but what's non-conference going to look like? Because you're going to have probably 4 pods, and if you follow a model, you're going to have another division you play, kind of like when the NFC North plays the AFC South, a home and home in a given year. So,
well, I think the question becomes is after seeing the Barstool announcement today that they're sponsoring the Arizona Bowl is which conference goes to the Barstool Sports Network?
Well, that's it. I mean, you're going to have Netflix and
Amazon Prime,
and Amazon, and Hulu. I mean, you're going to have those that's your next round of who's going to pay me, along with ESPN and Fox, and that'll be it. So, we'll dive some more into behind the curtain with this Oklahoma decision to go to the SEC. Dean Blevins, Mr. Sooner Insider, will be with us in a little bit. Rick Kaczenski, his take on the SEC, on Clemson, on Notre Dame, and what the Big Ten can do and should do is on the way in a little less than an hour. Emails, get them in at chris@hailvarsity.com, and find us on social. ESPN Lincoln Facebook, and of course at ESPN Lincoln on Twitter, at Schmidt_radio, Chris Schmidt, at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. Dean Blevins next, Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Let's talk Sooners to the SEC. Longtime, many-time sportscaster of the year, Sooner Insider, host of the Lincoln Riley Show, Bob Stoops Show, and with News Night in Oklahoma City. Dean Blevins, former quarterback at Oklahoma, at Dean Blevins on Twitter. Dean, what's going on, man? Have you had a chance to sleep at all with all the news? Good to spend time with you. Thanks.
I tell you what, who would have ever imagined this? And, I'm sure you've talked about the generational changes that have taken place with, the NCAA is about to be toast, and 12-team playoff, coming off COVID, all those things, and now Oklahoma's going to go with Texas to the SEC. I'll tell you how big a story it is down here. I'm writing a script for my 6 o'clock sportscast that is a very stern and rare response from an Oklahoma coach toward the president at OSU. She was very critical of Oklahoma and its handling of the move to the SEC. And Bullet Bob comes back. The Stoopses, they're gonna jump back. So anyway, my point is, it's like the third or fourth thing in the show, but there's so much going on related to it.
Well, yeah, Oklahoma State's president went off on Twitter yesterday and shamed Oklahoma, called you. I mean, it was the traitor insinuation and following Texas. And Dean, let me ask you this. Did the
Let me say one.
Sure.
Let me say one
yes.
thing. I'm looking at this statement as you're saying that, and Bob jumps on she was wrong with this, and this, but he couldn't resist getting a shot in here. I think because one of the things she said was that Oklahoma followed Texas into the SEC. That was carefully worded. Bob comes back and says, toward the end of his comment, the reality is that conferences are now more important than ever, and with limited spots, the strongest conferences would not accept OU if we were to require OSU to join as well. Wow.
That's right on. I mean, you've taken Oklahoma has taken care of a lot of Big 12 schools for a lot of years, especially post Nebraska, and begrudgingly, Nebraska fans will say, yeah, Texas has been pretty important as well. Dean, in your thought on this move, did the SEC say, hey, what are you doing, or do you think it was more about Oklahoma and, hey, if we stay here, there's a ceiling on how much money we can earn?
Well, I think that there have been talks, general talks, going on for a long time. But the thing that got it going, got it over the hump, if you will, that got Oklahoma and Texas aggressively evaluating the situation. They've been doing it for a year, by the way. It's unbelievable. The story didn't break. But the thing that tipped it over was that, ESPN comes out and gives their TV contract to the SEC of some $300 million. And they made another deal with another conference. And so the Big 12 called and said, it's ESPN and Fox, and they called and said, hey, we'd like to begin negotiations with our deal. And they were met with indifference, meaning that they weren't going to get anywhere close to what they had been getting, and OU's been disappointed in their share anyway. So when that happened, that was the telltale sign that, man, it's time to move on. Looking at the long term, Chris, you got 16-team conferences. We're going to be proactive and be ahead of the game, and that's what got it started and the thinking.
Dean, is the SEC done with just you two when it comes to additions?
I think so, but, Sankey is a terrific and strong commissioner, and I know there's been talk about expanding to 20, so this would push it to 16, and that's been, what everybody's talking about, ultimately 4 conferences of 16 teams. Well, I think he's sitting there going, hey, if I can get, for example, Notre Dame and Clemson, maybe he can't. I think he could get Clemson. But if he said, hey, let's bring those 2 in, and my gosh, we'll own this thing. So that's possible. That's possible. And don't say, I think the chances are low that Notre Dame would even join something like that, but the 20 number has been talked about.
When it comes to the Big Ten, do you believe that maybe there's been some overtures to an Ohio State or Michigan? I mean, when we talk about this monster league.
Yeah. Those were the 2 schools. Those were 2 of the other schools mentioned. I saw some reports and have talked to some people that have mentioned 4 teams, and so they would be the other 2. My goodness. You guys need them. You need them up there. So
what do you think happens with the rest of the Big 12? Do they merge with the AAC, or what do you think's next?
The Big 12 wants to stay together as long as it can to keep receiving checks, their TV checks. Oklahoma and Texas will owe $80 million apiece if this thing plays out per the rights agreement that are in place right now through 4 more seasons. OU would play 4 more seasons in the Big 12, and it wouldn't be until 2025 that they would make the move. It's going to happen sooner than that. But if all that happens, that's ideal for the Big 12 remaining Big 8. But there's no one going to pay anything for the 8 remaining schools. It's going to be minuscule. So without going into too much more time on the angle we're talking about here, Chris, I think the OSUs have to knock on Big 10 and Pac-12, perhaps, but probably not the ACC. And I don't know how that's going to be received, and we know how the academic part of it has not been good for schools around here, more so Oklahoma State than Oklahoma.
Dean Blevins is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Dean, I got to get your take on, well, we know this is going to be good for Oklahoma and good for the SEC when you just look about the revenue that this is going to bring in. But when you look at the NCAA, they've been losing power this summer with name, image, and likeness, kind of power going to the players. Now this is power going to another conference in the SEC. Do you think this is bad news bears for the NCAA and their longevity in this sport?
Yeah, I think the NCAA's day, I would bet big money that the NCAA's days are numbered, and it's just a matter of time. There's a lot of boxes that have to be checked for OU and Texas to end up on the gridiron and basketball courts and playing SEC teams. But I think you can check the box of the NCAA being no more, probably in fairly short order.
Dean, with Oklahoma.
How crazy does that sound?
Well, it's been a long time coming, right? Just,
I know.
Right,
yeah.
with just their management and their commission on things.
Right.
So, so a long time coming. Dean Blevins with us, News 9, Oklahoma City, Sooner Insider with us, Hail Varsity Radio, at Dean Blevins on Twitter. Now, Dean, when it comes to fit in the SEC, Nebraska has had some interesting times trying to adjust to the Big Ten. It started off okay, and then it wasn't, and now they're trying to get back to that adjustment phase. We'll see. With Oklahoma, Texas, you guys score a lot of points. How do you see the initial fit with what OU can do when it comes to wins and losses in the league, even if it's as soon as 2022?
Well, Chris, you know that I don't blow smoke about Oklahoma. I call it like it is, and I think that's why you called me.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say something that's very positive about Oklahoma right now, and it's my gut feeling. And that is Lincoln Riley's taking this program where it hasn't been before. Is it good enough right now, this coming season, to go beat the Alabamas and win a national championship? I'm very skeptical of that, but it's much closer now. The job that Alex Grinch has done defensively has been just unbelievable. They're bringing in a quality of player. They're bringing in SEC-type players to Oklahoma. And so Oklahoma is headed up, but they've not been able to reach that point because they lose a lot of fantastic players who end up going, it's OU or the SEC, and they go to the SEC. So the belief is that Oklahoma will really upgrade its recruiting from what it is right now. And where they are right now is pretty competitive. I mean, you guys are coming to town. I don't know how that game will go, but Oklahoma's a lot better. They're much better. They're not the team. I'll put it this way: they weren't the team. They aren't the team that LSU barbecued and that Alabama has handled a couple of times.
So they're better there. What about Texas? From your sight line, is Texas going to be all of a sudden improved, or are they still struggling to get to 8 or 9 wins?
Well, I said I thought Tom Herman would win. I was wrong. And boy, never was a fan. But anyway, but I believe much more so that Sark will win there. He's already recruiting extremely well. It's been an upgrade. But the biggest thing he's already done, Chris, I just got back from Big 12 Media Days, talking with the players there and hearing Sark's words about basically taking from Alabama. He comes in with that cred, so the players listen to him intently. They believe him. People didn't believe Tom Herman. They believed him. They bought in. And what he's telling them is that, hey, Texas has thought in the past that you win games and championships because your school's got a lot of money, you've got a nice stadium, and you have a bunch of great recruits. He says that's not how you win. You win by doing things right, doing things the way Saban has done it down there. And they bought into it. It's a long way of saying I think Texas will be back much better even this year.
Last thought here, Dane, about 30 seconds. We can talk about Texas and Oklahoma playing in the SEC all we want, but we won't know the results until they're actually playing in the SEC. Right now, Big 12 bylaws say 2023 is the earliest they can go. Do you think it's going to take that long?
That's realistic. So that would be – I see them perhaps getting out after this season. I'd put it at 25%, but I'd probably put it at 50% that next year. It will not go 4 more seasons.
Dean Blevins, Sooner Insider, News 9, Oklahoma City, at Dean Blevins on Twitter. Dean, we're headed down to Norman, my man. We will see you down in Norman.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Hey, appreciate your time at Inside, buddy. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care, guys.
All right, there he is, Dean Blevins with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Great insight there on Oklahoma, their decision process, and where they could stack up.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show Chris at HailVarsity.com.
Just try me. Try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good insight on the Sooners, their trip to the SEC, their move from Dean Blevins, Sooner Insider News 9, Oklahoma City. That posted on the ESPN Lincoln Twitter feed, also the on-demand section, ESPNLincoln.com. And part of that interview, the SoundCloud will be up. And, yeah, it just came down to sick and tired of carrying 8 other schools financially. And, yeah, the tipping point, the breaking point, as Dean said, about a year in discussions, was when the SEC got paid for media rights and the Big 12, we'll talk to you later, Fox and ESPN. We like you, Oklahoma. We like you, Texas. Don't care about the other 8. And that's the reality. It's TV and money, baby.
Well, I mean, have you watched more Big 12 games not featuring Texas and Oklahoma than AAC games? I feel like I watched more of Houston last year than Kansas.
Well, clearly. Clearly. And listen, you're scoping out the old Dana Holgerson skullet. I know you. You look for mullets in the wild. So, yeah, you're watching Houston over Kansas. Of course you are. So let's talk Nebraska here. Thursday, we'll have coverage of the Huskers Media Day as they get ready for Fan Day this week. And plenty of players available. That'll be cool. So when we talk about Adrian Martinez, 2 a.m., 4th straight year as starter, 3 seasons of up and downs, and you have experience, you have talent, and if you're a Nebraska fan, hopefully you have an injury-free 4th season. So a lot riding on the year, and I'm interested here with, how far Adrian can take Nebraska. But my question is this, how far or how much weightlifting does Adrian have to do? And I think this year can be different with just the amount of baggage he's got to haul. Baggage with looking over his shoulder, who's chasing me. You need competition, but am I going to get yanked, and are they going to put somebody that's worse than me in to take snaps and not help win games? Am I going to be able to throw to receivers that get open or can separate? And am I going to be able to throw to receivers that can win a 50-50 ball because physically they're as big or bigger than the safety or defensive back or linebacker trying to check them? And when it comes to carrying the load here, yes, Adrian will have to be really good turnover-wise. Adrian's going to have to stay healthy. I don't know if that means running less or just better at staying healthy. But I do know that you've had an off season and a spring to work with people. That's got to be incredible. And is it fair to say, is it too Kool-Aid-ish for me to look at the running back options and the receiver options and the offensive line and go, you know what? There's got to be somebody. There's got to be a couple of dudes in the receiver room at tight end that are going to make his life easier throwing the football. Is it okay to look at the running back room and say, you know what, they'll find a couple of guys that they can lean on and run the football? And oh, by the way, let's shuffle in Coach Lubick with a little bit more control. And when he called plays, Rutgers, Purdue, that's probably the best Adrian's looked. Obviously, turnovers notwithstanding that first half. But you were carving up yards against Rutgers. I realize we're talking Rutgers and Purdue. But if we're just talking offensive output, right, that's more what you need to look like if you're Nebraska, 28, 31, 35, instead of 21 to 23 points, which you'd been averaging in Big Ten play. So, how much of the heavy lifting will Adrian have to do? Same amount, more, less? I'm going to liken what he'll have at his disposal, offensive line, skill guys, running back, to what he had in 2018. If that's the case, with an improved defense and he takes care of the football or has help taking care of the football, you don't have to feel that squeeze, that pressure. You can just go play ball. Easier said than done, Elijah, but that's where I'm at. Adrian's the trigger guy. The team will go how he goes. But I think he can have an easier path of it, despite the schedule, because of what's around him. That's how I'm looking at this season when I do the math on Adrian Martinez and say, okay, what are the potential outcomes? What's his performance going to be like? And I think he could have an incredible season. He could ball. Scott Frost talked to us last week. Like, look, man, he's got the ability to be player of the year, and I believe that because of his talent. But what's held him back? Turnovers, indecision, confidence, and injury. And I think injury's been a big part of that. And he's tried to do too much because he didn't have a lot of help. He's had to be a one-man band at different points and in different games in his career. Well, he's got some help. I'm not calling him Zeppelin, but he's got some help with someone on the drums, bass, and guitar versus the vocals.
And with the strength that's returning on defense this year for Nebraska, I mean, you don't need your offense to go light it up and be the best offense in the Big Ten. If you can have a top 5 Big Ten defense and a top 8 Big Ten offense,
be better.
You're good enough to at least make a bowl game, and that's what the Husker fans are looking for this year. You don't need to have all conference guys everywhere on offense, but you need to have an offense that has some strengths and is good enough to be able to use those strengths to mask their weaknesses. Last year, I couldn't tell you what a strength of the offense was. The running game was
when they ran it.
When they ran the ball with the quarterback. There are the times whenever you had a healthier Dedrick Mills back there that the run game found some success, and it felt like the offense as a whole found some success because you could hide your weaknesses, which were, I believe, to be the wide receivers last season.
Sure.
If you can find some strength in this offense, something you can go to, you can hide your weaknesses. If we don't know who the running back is going to be this year, maybe that's your weakness on offense, and you can hide that with a very good receiver, at least by all accounts, in Samori Toure. Mm-hmm. Omar Manning's got all the physical traits. Adrian Martinez is a senior quarterback that's seen it all in the Big Ten. You should be able to hide those weaknesses, and all you really are looking for from this offense is to not be terrible. Well, if they can at least be average in the Big Ten, it should be good enough to get Nebraska to 6 wins.
You can find enough consistency to win some coin flips and win some games as favorites. You can find consistency on the offensive line. You can find some consistency in a couple of pass catchers and your tight ends, and you can find consistency at running back because you had consistency with Mills, like you touched on, until he got dinged. And then you had no really plan B that you felt great about. No, it's going to be up to Step. It's going to be up to the rest of the running back room to find a couple 3 options. And I think they can. We'll wind down hour 1. Rick Kaczenski's on the way. It's Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this first hour. Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Reminder about buckling up, and there's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver. Drunk driving, buzzed, or high driving, never acceptable. Law enforcement officers working every day to stop before more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Couple of segments with Kaz coming up. Rick Kaczenski. Tuesdays with Kaz on the way. Tomorrow we are at the Warren Academy, the Future 50, and that's 50 of the top high school prospects in the state of Nebraska and southwest Iowa. We'll be live 4 to 6 with Hail Varsity Radio, and we'll be there earlier in the day catching up with some of the top talent and preps around the region. and some guys that are going to wow that you may not know as much about as some of the other headliners from the Metro. So excited about that, and we'll also StreamYard some of it. So we'll have some quick video sit-downs with some of these players from all different parts of the state of Nebraska, Lincoln, Omaha, and some of the other regions, west or northeast or further west in the state of Nebraska. So excited about that. We may have to tase him, but we will have a few minutes with Joel Makovica. And it may take several tases to take a fullback down, especially if we're doing an interview near a goal line. Just saying. But Steve Warren's awesome. Had a chance to talk with Husker and Packer and founder of the Warren Academy yesterday. And Steve's done a ton, man. And it all started off with community work with the Dream Foundation, and then it kind of shifted to some training and coaching with kids. And Steve's just been a big-time asset in the state and in the community with all the work he's done with so many high school kids. Elijah, did you do much camp work while you were in high school, that junior, senior season, or did you do it? And I ask that because I know we've bitched and moaned about the temperatures a little bit, but right now Junior's getting ready for his freshman year of football. So they've been doing agility work and conditioning, and it's been an ongoing weightlifting thing. So it's nice to have him up and going, and not sleeping off how late he was up playing, Grand Theft Auto or whatever. So he's been doing that. That's been good for him. But just as far as the camp thing goes, I mean, it was pretty advantageous between the college football programs you checked out or just some of the city or training options you had.
Yeah, and I went all over. I mean, I didn't go anywhere more than like 4 or 5 hours away, but I tried to hit all the camps I could just because it's a different coach coming in and giving you some insight. And I'll say, we discussed what the Warren Academy has done. And I feel like the Warren Academy is really coming into prevalence around my freshman year, about 8 years ago. And, man, just we discussed how the recruiting scene in Nebraska has gotten so much better, and we get all these 3- and 4-star guys and even 5-star in basketball. You can't discount the effects of the Warren Academy and other, I don't want to say copycat organizations, but other places that have done the same training for these high school players, and just how much better it prepares them to go out and get noticed at these camps and to perform well in their high school seasons. It's incredible stuff, and it's one of the reasons why the high school talent is the way it is in Nebraska right now.
Well, and think about some of the other states, right? Texas, California, Florida, other regions have spring football, right? Well, you don't have a spring football in the state of Nebraska. You have other great sports to play, but you can do year-round training, and it's paying off. Rick Kaczenski's on the way, hour 2 with Hail Varsity.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's say hi to Rick Kaczenski. Tuesdays with Kaz, coach at Nebraska and at Iowa. Kaz, what do you think of this conference realignment? First and foremost, how was the weekend? How's Kaz doing?
Kaz doing great. Can't complain. So, glutton for punishment. Picked up another team. Picked my son up playing a tournament. So I went and sat in about 120% humidity and watched 4 baseball games in 2 days. So it was good, but baseball is officially over now and starting football. So they're already on their third practice here. So getting ready for football season down here in South Carolina.
You know what? It sounds a lot like Junior. He had, I think he had a total of 6 games Thursday through Sunday in Des Moines, West Des Moines. Good times, great Saturday. Sunday, not so much, but and he's on to. This is funny, agility training, and I think the training's great, but he's a Schmidt, so we'll see how the agility part works out. So. He's
open mom's got a 4.640 in her, maybe, you know what I mean?
Mom's a ninja. Yes. No, that's absolutely the hope, Kaz. You hit the nail on the head. So what's your reaction to Oklahoma and Texas here in the SEC? Are you one of those guys that's like it's just a matter of time, or are you shocked it's been this sudden? The ask has been made here, the official movement here by Texas and Oklahoma to apply for membership. That's in the works, and the Big 12 is shaky. And you know what? Coach Osborne knew it 10, 12 years ago, and Nebraska made the move to the Big Ten. But as we look at here and now, Kaz, what's your take on fit with the SEC with Texas and OU?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can look at fit anymore. And this conference realignment, it isn't new. I mean, it's been happening. College athletics. You look at the Big East basketball from back in the day. Look at the Big East Conference when Miami was in there. So it's been happening. As a purist, you don't like it. You like to keep all the traditions together, but that's not the world we're in now. So I'm a matter of time guy. I would love for it to be the old way, but that's just the old ways. It's done. There's just too much money on the table. The brand's getting too big, and with adding Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC's got an opportunity to make more than literally the NCAA makes in a year. I mean, literally, it'll be billions of dollars with a B. It'll be over $1 billion that the SEC brings in, and I think when you look at the Power Five, you got 20 schools that make the top 20 schools in the Power Five make $925 million from football. So, I think it's just a matter of time with, down here in SEC country, you get exposed to a lot more of the media, obviously. And Sankey, he hates Mark Emmert. He wants to dissolve the NCAA. He's got a model. It's a power conference. Basically, the NCAA has thrown up the white flag. You go back to COVID protocol, NIL. You look how they handled. You look at women's softball, how they handled that, the facilities. You look at volleyball, the facilities, how they handled that. The championships, that should be first rate. NCAA is $1 billion industry, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, which is take care of the student athletes. So I wouldn't be shocked. If you see a model with Greg Sankey putting a power conference together with divisions, and I think it can be a good thing the way it is now, but the Pac-12 is just not the way it is now, but I think where it's going, the Pac-12 is done. Not the Pac-12, but the Big 12. They will no longer exist, and I think right now you're going to have a lot of schools trying to sell their brand to get into these 16, 20 team power, I guess, conferences or divisions. I think that's where we're heading with college football.
Rick Kaczenski is with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, is the SEC done with just Oklahoma and Texas, or do they keep on rolling and try and go get Notre Dame, Clemson, whoever they want from the ACC? Do they make a move to try and get Ohio State and Michigan from the Big Ten? I mean, do they make it not 32, but do they go the top 40 or 60 programs? Do they make just one giant league of their own, or do you think it's going to be, all right, there's absorption that happens, okay, so there's 16 to 20 team leagues, and it's just a four league setup, right? Kind of like it is, but you've got one or two leagues that get absorbed by other leagues. Do you think the SEC tries to take it all, or they're just gonna add a little bit, a second helping to their plate, so to speak, in the form of Texas OU? How big does the SEC get, I guess?
Yeah, I think it'd probably expand a little bit more, but they're a marquee conference. They're not going to take anybody. It's gonna come down to dollars and common sense, and so I guarantee there's a lot of teams right now trying to sell their brand to the SEC. I can't imagine. The Notre Dames. I know Clemson's not going to leave the ACC. I think what you'll start seeing is the Power 5 conferences besides the SEC trying to expand, and you're going to see the Big 12 and some Pac teams, I think, get absorbed by these leagues. Heck, man, I wouldn't be shocked if you've seen a Washington and a Big 10. Let's be honest. Take geography out of it.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with geography anymore. And I think it can be a good thing. I mean, you look at the ACC, and Clemson, nobody even challenges them. Look at the Big Ten, Ohio State. What have they won? 5 in a row. Mm-hmm. But what I loved about this year with Notre Dame, you're getting some marquee matchups with Notre Dame, Clemson, and the ACC. Everybody in college football love that, and I think just the way it's going, I think you'll get more of that. And I think this is a preview. I think they're kind of thinking ahead on the college football playoff. The college football playoff will continue to expand, and I think this is going to give teams opportunities to get in that playoff, because you're going to have teams with these conferences. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma right now, they're probably the 5th and 6th best teams, and I'm talking about Oklahoma. Oklahoma might be maybe at best the 4th best team in the SEC right now. Texas, 7, 8, maybe. So, you're going to have some teams with multiple losses. So I think they're putting this is my opinion, and
sure.
Talking to a few guys I know, their opinion, nothing educated, but I don't think you can fight it. The conferences, as we know it, they're going away. The Power 5 is going to exist. Not the way we know it. Might be Power 4 with the 12 going away and people absorbing those 12 things. I mean, Kansas in the Big Ten makes sense to me. That makes sense to Nebraska. Kansas football still makes a lot of money, no matter how you cut it. All right, and then you have them as a basketball school. I think it aligns academically also. So I think right now what you're going to have is these other conferences besides the SEC looking to absorb these teams that kind of these men without a country, some of these Pac teams, some of these Big 12 teams. So I really think that's where we're going. I can't imagine anybody from the Big 10 leaving. I can't imagine Clemson leaving. I can just see the Big 10 and the ACC bringing more people to the party.
Kaz, got to go to the Notre Dame side before we dive into the Big 10. Could Notre Dame be sweet-talked by the Big 10? Or do you think, I know that contractually they're aligned with the ACC because Notre Dame's priorities are playoff availability, what's going to get me to the playoff in football, what's going to take care of my Olympic sports, and what's not going to jeopardize NBC. Okay, that's bang, bang, bang. That's the priority. But do you foresee, and you've got Barry Alvarez now, a special assistant to Commissioner Warren. Could Barry and some other power brokers within the Big Ten reach out one more time? Do you get told no a third time by Notre Dame? You got to try, don't you, if you're the Big Ten?
Yeah, I don't know if the Big Ten would even try. I think Notre Dame, they are going to try to keep their independence in football as long as they can. They're going to try to play the service academies as long as it allows. Play the Southern Cal.
Sure.
They've been playing that game for about 100 years, literally now. There's just things that they don't want to give up, and they're in a position right now where they don't have to give it up. But when you start getting this realignment in these high volume conferences, some of that might go away from Notre Dame, but I think it's going to be a few years before their hand is forced. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, the NBC contract, that's vacation money to them. That's absolute peanuts to them. I know they like the exclusivity, but like everything else, never say never. If you would have said 20 years ago that Nebraska would have been in the Big Ten and West Virginia in the SEC, or in the Big 12,
mm-hmm.
In Missouri in the SEC, people would have looked at you like you had three eyes. And so never say never. It's going to come down to money. It's going to come down to markets. And I've kind of just gave into it and said, okay, well, maybe this will be a good thing. You take the geography out of it. I still think you'll have A lot of the pageantry left from what was the alignments of the old conferences. But I also see some opportunities for some teams. I think it'll help people recruit nationally, and I think a place like Nebraska, Notre Dame, Penn State, where you have a national brand, I think it's going to benefit. I really think it's going to benefit because there's so much affiliation geographically with kids on the West Coast and the South and the Southwest with the Big Ten schools. I think it would take that geography out of it, the geographical affiliation, and I think it would open some more doors up. And like I said, I think it would be some great matchups. It's going to be like the NFL, in my opinion. You're going to have divisions. No matter what you call them, you're going to have multi-team divisions happening. I'm not sure what's going to happen to, the UCFs, those type of schools. They might stay within the NCAA, but if I'm a betting man, Greg Sankey is getting these Power 5 conferences and these ADs and everybody together and saying, let's get the hell away from the NCAA. And I used to stand up for the NCAA to a point, but man, it's just going away. I'm not sure how much good they do. I think athletics has really passed them by, and just the way they've handled the last year with COVID, with the facilities for women, it's embarrassing. To me, they've put the white flag up. It's time to move on. It's time to move on and figure something out. And the SEC, they got money, and there's a model, and they're about to put themselves in position with adding Texas and Oklahoma to be richer than the NCAA. So, a lot of change, man. A lot of change. Wouldn't want to be an AD right now, or maybe I would, But I think you got to look at it as it's an exciting time, man. And conference. I think anytime this stuff happens, Schmitty, everybody's like, "Oh man, what about?" I mean, Texas doesn't play A&M anymore. Nebraska doesn't play Oklahoma anymore. I mean, it's just kind of we'd like to live in the past. All that stuff is great. Mm-hmm. And it's great to read about. It's great to talk about. It's part of your brand. But you know what? Unfortunately, kids don't care anymore. They want to go where they can win. Mm-hmm. They want to go where you can be on TV and play in nice facilities. And that's what the Power 5 is. That's what it is. So I really, really think that's where it's heading. But to me, it took a while for me to talk myself into it, but I think it's going to be an exciting time for college football here moving forward.
Rick Kaczenski is with us. Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz's take on Notre Dame and where their future may be. Some thoughts on Oklahoma and Texas. Kaz will have another segment with him coming up here in about less than 5 minutes, about 3 minutes or so more with Kaz. The Big Ten, big picture, and Barry Alvarez, his influence, and what do you do if you're the Big Ten? I love getting perspective on this from guys like Coach Kaczenski. Spent a lot of time in the Big Ten, so his take on the Big Ten and their future with whether you go, as they say, shopping or not. I've tried not to wear you out on this expansion stuff, and I know we hit on it yesterday, and we're taking time on it today. We'll get more full into football mode tomorrow, but it's been pretty fascinating to see the fallout with Texas and Oklahoma, and then the domino effect here. What are the remnants? What's the ripple look like?
I mean, it's the biggest news in college football in 5 years, arguably 10 years. I mean, I don't think spending 2 days on it is anything. I think spending anything less than 2 days on it would be shortchanging it.
Well, and we'll get more from Rick Kaczenski. Is this last dance approach going to work for Aaron Rodgers? We'll try and answer that here in about 30 minutes.
And we're back.
Fellas, you think we could listen to the radio listen?
On Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes!
Rick Kaczenski is with us. Hail Varsity Radio, Tuesdays with Kaz, Expansion Talk. Kaz, we talked Notre Dame. Now I'm going to talk Big Ten. I don't think the Big Ten can stand pat with what the SEC has done, and you have an opportunity to add some names if you're the Big Ten The Big Ten's also, well, they look at your academic standing, the chancellors and presidents, the AAU part of the equation too, and there's some fit. And you're right about borders and geography. Just go ahead and punt on third down with that. Do you think it makes sense? And does the Big Ten have to go get who they want from the Pac-12, i.e., SC and Oregon, a UCLA, a Washington, Stanford, Cal? I mean, do you pick up a six-pack on the way home from work?
Yeah, I mean, think about the Big Ten. Think about the West Coast travel. Think about adding a Washington. I think that something like that would make sense. A Washington. Not sure, if a Southern Cal would make sense, but to me, Washington. That's a great fit. Where does Stanford go? Do they try to go independent like a Notre Dame? I mean. So that's why I really think it's an exciting time. But it would not shock me. It would absolutely not shock me to see a Western expansion for the Big Ten. And the great thing about the Big Ten, this is one thing that we used to sell at both Nebraska and I. There's more Big Ten alumni in the country, in the 50 states than there are from any other conference. So. That's just not athletes. That is Big Ten alumni. So the Big Ten is represented in all facets, all parts of the country, all segments. So I think that part of the expansion would make great sense. And think about some of those matchups. I mean, you have destination matchups, and that's why I just keep saying, man, it's going to be an exciting time. But that wouldn't shock me. I don't know where you go east. I don't know what makes sense east anymore. I think when they went, you got Penn State, you got Maryland, you got Rutgers, you got those TVs. All right, where else do you go? I don't think you go to a Syracuse. I don't think you go to a West Virginia. I think you go west. I think the schools, when you look at academics and athletics, I think the schools out west marry up with Nebraska and the Big Ten way more than any schools that are left out east.
I think you're right on. And, you look at the blue blood tag where you got OU and Texas that have been added to the SEC. If you could get a USC with UCLA, and I know UCLA's not been great in football, and SC's been down, but they're still, 7 to 9 wins down with some high-level talent in Washington. And then the Oregon brand has been pretty fierce for 20 years, and it's an IT program. And then the academics of a Stanford and a Cal. I mean, that Silicon Valley money on top of research dollars paired with Northwestern. I think you got to do that. And, there's some worry within the Big Ten with Warren. It's year 2. Year 1 didn't go well. Spend a second here on what Barry Alvarez, and we talked to him last week at Media Days, and he hadn't talked with all the meetings he's been a part of. Expansion wasn't really something that was brought up. Do you think everyone was blindsided by this, or do you think maybe 4 or 5 people knew within the SEC and they just kept it quiet till Big 12 Media Days?
Oh no, this has been in the works. You can't make a drastic decision like this and departure. This has been in the work a long time. How Texas, especially coming out of Austin, how that was kept a secret, that is absolutely beyond me. And but they did a hell of a job keeping it a secret. But this isn't something that just came up. I guarantee, with COVID and just the way the NCAA handled things and allowed the conferences to basically say, okay, you handle it however you want. NIL, you handle it however you want. Like I said, they've thrown up the white flag. There's been no governance. And you look at the playoff committee, you look at what the SEC has done, what Greg Sankey has done, with these guys that have been around the game, right? And I really think that those folks have come together and said, wait a minute, we can do this better than them. And it's just, to me, and I think when you look at the SEC, when you look at a guy like Barry, I think Barry sees things black and white. Why does if a corporation, if you look at college football as a corporation, when you got the top 20 Power 5 football teams earning $925 million, why do they have to follow the same rules as Binghamton hockey up in New York? That doesn't make any sense. That wouldn't make sense anywhere else in the world, but that's how the NCAA operates. So I think people got tired of the NCAA collecting checks and standing pat, taking care of themselves, while not taking care of the student athletes, the institutions, and then going telling all these universities and ADs, hey, you go handle it, right? And I mean, all due respect to Kevin Warren, I obviously didn't do a good job last year, but there should have been some guidance and some education from the NCAA, and there was nothing. Just like NIL. People are absolutely clueless with the NIL right now. There was absolutely no education, nothing from the NCAA. And I think that's where they finally said, and a guy like Barry and his guidance, hey, this is where guys like that's where you can't put a dollar figure on expertise, on experience, and wisdom. And, Barry probably didn't talk about expansion, but I guarantee he knew about it. And Barry Alvarez, he's not a guy, he's not going to leak things. He's going to hold his cards close to the vest. So I guarantee that administrators, ADs, people saw this thing coming for a long time. I don't know if they saw it coming from Texas and Oklahoma, but they saw it coming. For you to announce it right before Jimbo comes up, right before A&M comes up, and all that other stuff, I mean, it's, the timing of it was impeccable. Typical, Texas. I think people are a little bit shocked by OU, but, there's just too much planning, too many things behind the scenes, too many lawyers, too many legalities, too many rights, too many documents that need to be written, and too much money for this to be just a decision that you made over a couple weeks. So, answer your question there. This has been in the works, Schmidt, in my opinion.
Well, and I think so. Just how long? And last thought, Rick Kaczenski's with us. Is Barry Alvarez kind of the key for the Big Ten to be reactionary? Maybe they've like we're talking here. Things are in the works. Maybe the Big Ten's got their ducks in a row here, pun intended, and it'll be okay. Yeah. But Barry's got to be kind of that calming voice and influence and power broker, doesn't he? I mean, for the Big Ten.
Yeah. Well, and here's I think you're looking at this a little bit wrong, Schmidt.
Sure. Right
now, who has the leverage? The Big Ten has the leverage, right? Just like the SEC has the leverage. Right now, you don't have Big Ten schools trying to find another conference. You got people trying to join the Big Ten. Right. You got people that want to join the SEC. Right, those are the two biggest money-making conferences. So you have leverage right now. I mean, you got asked to the prom by 3 different girls. You're trying to pick the prettiest one, right? You can't decide which one you want to go to. That's the Big Ten's problem right now, in my opinion. And same thing with the SEC. Who's the big fit? Who's the best fit? And the best fit is money and TVs. Yeah. We can say academics. They'll figure out. They'll spin the academic side, all that. It's going to come down to money. It's going to come down to TVs, which in turn comes money. So to me, I don't look at the Big Ten being reaction. I think the Big Ten can stand pat. The Big Ten, in my opinion, is in the interview process.
Sure.
The Big Ten is a great conference. The Big Ten is a conference people want to be a part of. So I guarantee, you got Kansas right now putting a pitch together. You got Iowa State putting a pitch together. You got a Baylor. Baylor might make sense. Texas Tech doesn't to me, but Baylor with academics, private. Hey, let's add another private school down in Texas. Whatever, man. I think that's the way you got to look at it. So to me, I'm sitting here saying the Big Ten is a desirable conference. So is the SEC. Okay, so tell me, start selling me on why you should be a member of of these two Power 5 conferences. So I wouldn't worry about the Big Ten, wouldn't worry about Nebraska. Nebraska has a brand. All right, Ohio State has a brand. I mean, schools in the Big Ten have a brand everywhere in this country. Some bigger, some a little bit smaller, but everybody knows the Big Ten. So I wouldn't worry about any of that or reactionary on that end. My concern is, picking the right date to go to the dance with you.
Rick Kaczenski, Mr. Prom, baby, with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, this was fun. Thanks for going through realignment with us today, man.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Rick Kaczenski there, plenty of reaction from him on expansion and the SEC and Oklahoma and Texas and where the Big Ten's at. And I think he's right on. And right now it's potentially an interview process. You got to feel like there's been some teams or will be teams that continue to reach out. And I just feel better if Barry's answering that phone call versus old Kev within the Big Ten. And I don't know. I think you kind of gotta one up the SEC. I mean, you're trying to win the dollars race. You already have done that with your current setup. So maybe you grab who you want from the Pac-12 and maybe you talk about Kansas.
Yeah, I don't think one-upping the SEC should be the goal here. It should just be keeping pace with the SEC. If you can keep pace with the SEC, even if you don't put up the same numbers in in football, maybe you can make up for it in basketball by adding a school like Kansas, because at the end of the day, football does drive the dollars and the cents and everything in college athletics. But I think you can do enough with basketball that if you added a basketball program and a football program, it could be enough to just keep up with the SEC.
Fair, totally fair. But why not? I see your wow move, and I raise your wow move. And ultimately, it's going to help you with your renegotiation.
Go get the Miami Dolphins. Go bring them in the Big Ten.
I don't want to have to watch them every Saturday because I can avoid them on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers, what's next for him?
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
And out, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Well, what'd you think? Aaron Rodgers went back to work. Aaron Rodgers had the backpack going, had the Office shirt going with Kevin from The Office on it, the famous chili and the chili scene that got spilled all over Dunder Mifflin. And the dreaded man bun. I have some friends that have a man bun. I guess I'm just jealous. I can't pull it off or have never pulled it off. So there we go. Last Dance. One more hurrah. How does this end? What do you believe? Aaron caved or Green Bay caved? I think Aaron caved, first off. Adam Schefter's got to write it favorably for Aaron to get the heads up, probably. That's fine. Answer me this. Is the legacy tarnished for Aaron Rodgers? As many games as Brett Favre played with Green Bay, not wanting to go to camp, coming back to camp, being in the news, probably not being a great teammate to Aaron Rodgers, which I get. I mean, you're protective of your sandbox. And then going to New York and then ended up in Minneapolis. And I loved watching Favre. But for Green Bay to go back-to-back, trade for Brett Favre, and then draft Aaron Rodgers, wow. Okay? So I don't know what concessions were made. Did they go get Randall Cobb? That'd be cool if they did. But what I'm hearing is that Aaron Rodgers wanted to pick, who the Green Bay defensive coordinator was. And what's Aaron Rodgers going to bring? Is he ticked off at how things went down against Tom Brady? Yes. Didn't get to go for it on fourth down. You did nothing with 3 turnovers in the second half against Tampa. You're 1-4 in NFC championship games. He's been good enough to have more than one Super Bowl ring, period. And what is he going to be like with no work this offseason? Is he a guy that comes in and flips the switch? As arm talented as he is and as mobile and graceful as he is, as effortless as it looks for him to throw the football and move around and be mobile? He separated the shoulder a couple times, but for the point being, he doesn't get killed because he's pretty graceful around in that pocket with that arm talent. Is he going to be as money this year as he was last year? Because for them to kind of rise above his crap and his BS and the other 52 teammates, he better just be insanely on fire every game so they're 13-3 again. Because if I'm a teammate of his, I'm annoyed. You put us in jeopardy. It's about making money, but you want to win too. It's more so about winning ball games. He needs to be every inch as good as he was last year. And with this offseason antics, is he going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, something to prove? Or is he going to come in with the attitude and mindset that I'm doing time?
I would argue that this is, of the holdouts we've seen recently, and maybe the social media aspect of things change things. You get to see Aaron's side of the story more. But I think this has been one of the more favorable situations like this for a player because Aaron Rodgers didn't do this for the money. When you look at other players, Ezekiel Elliott holding out, I think Todd Gurley held out a few years ago looking for more money. The average person sitting at home goes, really, what's the difference for you between $20 million and $25 million a year? Whenever you look at me,
$12 million take home or $10.5 take home.
Yeah, and when you're looking at that as an average fan, you go, all right, this guy, like, come on, man, go play football. You're making millions of dollars anyway. But with Aaron, it was different because it was never about the money.
No, this was about leadership.
This is about leadership, and this is about his ability to be successful in Green Bay. What did Aaron Rodgers want? He wanted the GM to make moves that benefited him and the team as a whole, and he didn't feel like he was getting that. And Packers fans, I think, actually stood behind Aaron Rodgers in this one, and I speak from my experience living with a Packers fan, as well as a video I saw last week where they were talking to the GM, and then the president introduced him in Lambeau to the fans and said, "This is the right man to lead our team going forward." And one of the
booze rained forward.
One of the fans, I was close to the guy taking the video, yelled, "But can he throw a football?" And that's where these Packers fans are coming from.
Players win games, brother.
The players win the games, and whenever the player is sitting here saying, this is unacceptable because I'm not being put in a position where I can win from the GM, I think the fans are going to stand behind that player and go, he's right, you can do more to help him win games. If the quarterback who has been leading our franchise for the past decade and has won us a Super Bowl and has taken us to 5 NFC championship games is saying he needs more help, then he probably needs more help.
Instead, you go draft Jordan Love because you want to make a splash and you're the GM, you're the boss. I'm not listening to you, Cal Berkeley boy. Leave me alone. And it's no different than an AD coming in and blowing things up to make a splash and put your stamp on. If you're right, I don't care. But so many times these guys aren't right. It's about ego. Now with Aaron Rodgers, he did throw a tantrum. He's been ticked off. He's frustrated. The window's closing, and he doesn't want to be around the current leadership in Green Bay. The point is, you've agreed to disagree. Everybody's back for a year. You go play for it and try and win it, and then you go your separate ways. Aaron's old, 17 years, but I mean vintage, not old, because he doesn't have as many miles on him compared to a guy who's been in the league 17 years. He's played 15. So I think your points are money. I think they're right on in the court of public opinion with Rodgers and the Green Bay saga. There's also the side of the coin where, dude, everyone's got a boss. So no matter if you think your boss is full of crap or not, you got to listen to him because you're not the boss. Or go somewhere else. Don't drag down everybody else around your drama. And to me, Aaron, because of his clout, was able to get away and do that. So, long story short, give me a Brady and Rodgers part 2 in the NFC Championship. And then send him to Dallas or put him back to your Dolphins or my Dolphins. Throw him down in Miami or go to Denver. I mean, let's figure out. Right now, the top 3 likely landing spots for Aaron Rodgers in 2022, per our friends at Barstool, Denver, Cleveland, D.C.
I'm surprised Oakland's not on the list.
Exactly. I mean, you have 2 quarterbacks, Watson and Rodgers, that you think will be on the move, assuming Watson's not in NFL jail.
Or regular jail.
Allegedly. For all the, I mean, there's a lot of women that had a pretty tough experience with visiting Deshaun Watson. I think Aaron's throwing his ego around, but I don't think he's wrong. I don't think he was wrong with being frustrated. He wants to go win ball games. And if you don't see my vision, get me out of here. That's what he tried. Well, at least he's back.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on the road tomorrow at the Ward Academy, the Future 50. Some of the top prospects, high school athletes in the state of Nebraska, Southwest Iowa, Steve Warren. Thanks to him, we got the invite out to be there. So we'll be doing Hail Varsity Live 4 to 6. We'll get there quite a bit earlier than that and run down some of the top prospects for you to watch and listen to. So excited about that. Brad Edwards tomorrow on the show. And, Nebraska Media Day Thursday, so players and a little bit of Coach Frost, and we get things rocking with Fan Day Thursday, and then camp is here, man. Friday, we are about a month away from Nebraska, Illinois.
That's, for some reason, this month of July has felt like the fastest month of the year. Maybe it's because COVID's reopening and... I mean, but usually for what is a pretty dead period of talking about Husker athletics, we have just had everything to talk about every single day, it feels like. And I can't believe football season's almost here, which, knowing how fast this month has been, the next month's probably just going to drag by.
New athletic director, expansion, AD search before all of that, the Moose news. Now you have Oklahoma, Texas. What's the Big Ten do? And Big Ten has got to do this edition from a strength standpoint, back to what Kaz said. It's leverage. You pick who you want, and you pick fit. And it's more about TVs and dollars. And I know you don't want to just do the keep up with the Joneses, but you need a appropriate response. You need an appropriate response to the point where you're needed to be competition with the SEC. If this thing goes to kind of an NFL, AFL setup where the haves are playing the haves, the nots are not playing the haves anymore, that would be no good for the Big Ten to not be able to challenge. Well, let's just say it. It would be no good for Ohio State not to get a crack at Alabama or Clemson again in the college football playoff as you expand. So you need to stay in that realm, and you need to be the choice, the dance partner. So go get some blue bloods and some teams of weight that are in the conversation. It's not Texas, it's not Oklahoma, I realize, but you still have some good teams in the Big Ten, and go grab who you want and who you need to fill out the rest of this expanded Big Ten. You got to be in position of strength to match the SEC, or they just keep adding. Maybe not this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 4 years down the road, but by 2025, you're going to have a new world of college football.
Well, and the moves the Big Ten's making now is ensuring the health of the conference 10, 15 years from now. If you don't do enough now, you could be what the Big 12 is going through right now in 15 years, and you could have your top teams being poached by the SEC Super Conference. So that if the Big Ten doesn't do enough now, it could mean bad things. I don't mean 2 years from now, but talk 10, 15 years down the road, could be a nail in the coffin for the Big Ten.
If you're moving towards just one Super Premier League, force the invite. Talk to you tomorrow at 4. Thanks.